Today, we find ourselves in a challenging time and place in national and international politics. It's a time of uncertainty and upheaval caused by the words and actions of the President of the United States on tariffs. To say the President has been erratic and unpredictable is an understatement.
Finance Minister Jim Reiter with Saskatchewan's 2025-26 budget. This year's title, Delivering for You. But it could be a tough one to deliver as the province waits to see what happens south of the border.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, March 19th, Provincial Budget Day, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. In the midst of unpredictable economic times, the provincial government has released a balanced budget, and it's projecting a surplus, albeit a small one. Revenue totals around $21 billion. That's up about $1 billion from last year, while expenses are up about $900 million, also to $21 billion total. That leaves a razor-thin surplus at just over $12 million. Healthcare tops the list of biggest expenses at $8 billion. Education follows at $4.4 billion. Social services, agriculture, and protection of persons and property round out the list, getting between $1 and $2 billion each. But it's what's missing from the budget that will likely draw the most attention. There are no contingencies to deal with the threat of tariffs from the U.S. or China. Alexander Kwan has more.
There is a lot of uncertainty ahead of us. I certainly am not going to deny that.
Premier Scott Moe believes the tariff situation is too fluid to build into the provincial budget.
What amount? And we've seen varying amounts across the nation, which tells you nobody quite knows what the impact of the tariffs might be.
Saskatchewan's approach is a departure from recent provincial budgets tabled in other provinces, like Alberta and BC, where they put billions aside to deal with the effects of tariffs. Premier Scott Moe says borrowing money and running a deficit in order to have a contingency fund is a bad idea. China has hit Canada with 100% tariffs on canola oil and pea imports, which is expected to hit farmers in Saskatchewan hard, maybe the hardest in the country. U.S. President Donald Trump has slapped Canadian metals with 25% tariffs. Other tariffs are on pause until April 2nd. The Saskatchewan budget offers a first-of-its-kind analysis at the costs of tariffs, and it's a stark picture. Within 1 year of the proposed tariffs, Saskatchewan's exports to the United States could drop by 30%, down $8 billion. And that means less tax, slashing the province's revenue by as much as $1.4 billion.
It seems that Scott Moe and the Sask Party are asleep at the wheel.
On Wednesday, the official opposition slammed the lack of planning by the provincial government.
Unfortunately, this budget will be very little comfort to all those families out there in this province right now who are worried about their jobs and their futures because of Donald Trump's tariffs.
And Alexander Kwan joins us now from the provincial legislature, along with the province's finance minister.
That's right. I'm here with the man of the hour, Finance Minister Jim Reiter. Minister, Premier Scott Moe said that the province is ready to lend a hand for Saskatchewan workers in a trade war. I guess my first question for you is, what does that look like?
So our budget today, it was a balanced budget. It was a small surplus. We think the best thing we can do to prepare for a trade war, a tariff war, which we hope doesn't last very long. Things seem to change by the minute there. We think we can best prepare by being in a good fiscal situation. That's where we're sitting. The Premier's been actively advocating for Saskatchewan, and both in Washington and in Ottawa and across the country. So, hopefully if there is a tariff war, it's not extended. If there is, we have an export-based economy, so it's gonna be a problem for us.
Now, there's been some criticism already about the health and education budgets, that once you account for salary increases, there's not much of an increase, I guess. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't think that's the case. If you look at, there's other areas of both the health and education budget, for example, there's lots in there for capital projects. Frankly, wages are significant. I mean, we want to recruit and retain people both in education and healthcare, and the budget addresses that.
The debt is going up by $2.5 billion. That's received some criticism from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, who say the debt should be going down rather than up. What's your response?
We've got a growing population. We hit, for the first time ever, just today, Statistics Canada announced 1.25 million people in Saskatchewan. That's huge compared to where we were just a decade ago. Those people need services. They need schools. They need hospitals. On the Crown side, the debt. They need power services. They need natural gas. They need telephone. So that debt that they're talking about is debt for capital projects, not operating.
Okay. Minister, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Right. That was Finance Minister Jim Reiter. Back to you, Ethan.
Legislature, and we'll join Alex again in a few minutes for a response from the opposition. Well, as you saw, healthcare is expected to be by far the government's biggest expense at about $8 billion. That's up about 6% over last year. Over half of that will be spent to run the Saskatchewan Health Authority, with the rest going to the province's cancer agency, mental health and addiction services, and infrastructure. But one union representing healthcare workers says the increase in money isn't enough for their employees.
Need some focus on retention. That's our biggest disappointment. Our healthcare workers haven't received a meaningful wage increase for probably 8 years. We took a number of years where we took zeros because we were in those economic times, and now we're so far behind. The CPI has increased by approximately 30% in the last decade, and yet our healthcare workers have only seen approximately 14% in that time period.
The CUPE president says low wages and lack of staff are the main reasons why workers aren't staying put. Premier Scott Moe says there is a significant investment in classrooms in this budget, but the head of the province's School Boards Association says it's only just enough to cover the basics. The education budget includes $2.4 billion in operating funds for K-12 schools, an increase of 8%. Some money will go toward the teachers' new collective agreement. That includes salary increases and dealing with class complexity. There's also more money for transportation, building maintenance, new schools, and specialized support classrooms.
But we haven't covered that additional investment that would allow for school divisions to provide additional services and additional programming for students. So once our key cost drivers are addressed, then additional dollars can be utilized by school divisions to improve services. And I think that this budget is going to fall short of an ability to improve the services we have.
Davidson says it does appear the government is making education a priority, and he especially appreciates more investment in K-3 literacy. And Alexander Kwan is back for more analysis now with the province's opposition.
That's right. I'm here with NDP Finance Shadow Minister Trent Witherspoon. Trent, we heard from you today say this budget's a work of fiction. It can't be trusted. What do you think is missing from this budget?
Well, really, it just completely fails to plan for the future, and it fails to recognize the very real challenges we face today. Absolutely no plan or no incorporation of the economic threats and tariffs that are causing real impacts and real threats to people and workers and producers across Saskatchewan. And when it comes to healthcare and education, both that have been put in last place under this current government, we actually see cuts to their budgets. If you think of healthcare, hospitals way over capacity, huge waits in emergency rooms. We've got the longest surgery waits in Canada, women being sent to out of province. They're on their own dime for mammograms and breast biopsies. This government has to explain to Saskatchewan people how they saw it in themselves to cut the health budget when they've put health in such a terrible spot. So this budget is completely out of touch with reality. Budget itself, from a fiscal perspective, has really become a charade, a government that really hasn't been able to manage the budget, and the costs of years of mismanagement, scandal, and waste are now piling up. You see it in the record debt, $38 billion. In fact, they've quadrupled the debt, and of course that only comes at a cost to Saskatchewan people who don't need more costs and taxes, but need relief.
30 seconds quickly. What do you see as the effects of these tariffs? What's the possible effect in Saskatchewan?
If they stand and if the threats that have been made continue, they hit our producers incredibly hard. You only need to look to the price of canola and the impact on producers, or the change in prices for beef prices already. But if you look at our steel manufacturers and agricultural manufacturers, these are all direct impacts. So we need to fight back and be effective on these fronts. And then we need to make sure that we're here to support and stand with and have a plan to support industries. Importantly, we need to build out transportation infrastructure to new trade markets as well. Pipelines, rail, and port capacity, things that should have been done a long time ago.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. That was NDP Shadow Finance Minister Trent Witherspoon. Ethan, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Alex. CBC's Alexander Kwan live at the legislature in Regina. Well, not too bad of a day for the budget in Regina and across much of the province. Riley Lachuk has a look at our spring weather forecast when we come back. Stay with us. This year's provincial budget also includes an increase to social income programs. The Saskatchewan Assured Income for Disability and the Saskatchewan Income Support Program will receive a 2% increase over last year. One anti-poverty advocate, though, says it likely won't help.
It works out to roughly $20 per SIS beneficiary and about $24 a month for folks on SED. So given the kind of cost of living crisis that we've been dealing with and the fact that these rates have been far too low for far too long, that's nowhere near enough, and we would certainly hope that we would be seeing more.
Gilmer says this will make it particularly more challenging for people to afford housing. Around 38,000 people in Saskatchewan currently rely on SED and SIS. Municipal revenue sharing has also increased in the budget, an additional $22 million from the last budget. The Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association is pleased with the increase, especially as municipalities deal with uncertainty around tariffs and what's to come in the federal political realm. But its president has some concerns.
The Saskatchewan Assessment Management Agency, for instance, did not receive an increase. We saw the transit for people with disabilities did not receive. We saw the airports funding that comes from provincial government did not receive additional funding. So when that happens, when you don't see those increases, that of course with inflation means that someone has to pick up the change in that, and that's our municipalities.
Golden says municipalities will likely be putting the bulk of the new money toward infrastructure. Well, uncertainty, of course, comes with any budget, but looking into the future after this budget is more complex than perhaps ever before. Adam Hunter spoke with one political watcher about his thoughts.
This is a really constrained budget, right? It's constrained in the kind of tax cut side, they're there. It's constrained in the new spending side. It's constrained even in the amount that it says it will do about Trump. It basically says, big scary thing out there, can't put a number to it, so we'll just proceed as kind of standard practice.
Did that surprise you at all? Other provinces have done sort of the opposite, Alberta, BC, New Brunswick.
Yeah, I was guessing there would be some sort of contingency plan. I think the expectation of the government is we have a very strong credit rating. We have a pretty diversified export market, and so if we do have to go to market to borrow partway through the year, we will be able to, and there are simply too many things you can't put a number on. Like in that part of the budget, yes, Trump tariffs would be massively disruptive if they lasted the whole year, but we can't tell you tomorrow, is it going to be 6 hours, 6 months, 6 weeks, at what rate? So better to just proceed as planned with an awareness that there is this uncertainty in our budgeting. It reminds me a little bit of the COVID pause 5 years ago, where there was shut the world down at budget day, wait 6 weeks to see what happens, and then proceed with a best guess that you're going to have to update mid-year.
Does that make things really uncertain? Like we don't know, we don't know day to day, and especially in Saskatchewan when it comes to things like the crops, the weather, that can affect the overall budget at the end of the year. And the number from today changes drastically year over year. But specifically this year, it seems like many things are up in the air, including the tariff on canola from China.
So there's all of that outside stuff. We also saw a heavier use last year of special warrants to adjust for collective agreements. So that was a big shift in last year's budget. We know that wildfires and things like crop insurance, because of a more variable climate, are bigger things. One thing you've seen other jurisdictions move to is kind of a more robust kind of fall economic update and adjustment. There's no discussion of that here, but it is the type of world we're in, and it's a $21 billion operation, and so even 5% shifts start to add up to real money.
The province's budget is based in large part on collecting taxes. In fact, about half of its revenue is projected to come from taxation, including the PST. And while that is not increasing in this budget, the government will add PST to vaping products. The province says that will maintain tax equity because the PST is already applied to traditional tobacco products, and it will make vape products less attractive to young people and non-smokers. The tax goes into effect June 1st. More families are now eligible for a tax credit for children's activities, and the credit itself has doubled. The active families benefit used to be reserved for families earning less than $60,000. Now, families making up to $120,000 are eligible. The benefit has also doubled from $150 per child to $300 per child per year. For a child with a disability, it's bumped up to $400 a year. The province says doubling the benefit and the income threshold will make it more affordable for families to access children's sports, arts, cultural, and recreational activities.
Well, Ethan, the final day of winter pretty much behind us. We're starting spring as we get into the day on Thursday. And if you want to be precise about it, that spring equinox coming our way at 3:01 in the morning on Thursday. So set your alarm. I don't know, maybe you're saying good riddance to winter. Maybe you're a fan of some of the winter activities. I don't know. Regardless, we're turning the page. Figuratively, the weather would probably dictate otherwise, especially as we get into your long-range forecast. Daytime temperatures looking, fairly seasonal for this time of the year. Around the freezing mark for most of us through the afternoon hours. Regina at +1, the Parkland, Yorkton, Broadview at 0 through the afternoon. Maple Creek at +8, and you can see there's that colder pocket of air for northern parts of the province. Stony Rapids at -13. Overall, mostly sunny today. Some cloud kind of in and out for really much of us throughout the day today. A little bit of cloud in south, but a little bit more through northern sections. And even out of some of this, a couple little stray flurries and some of that to be expected in some of this stratus cloud. I mean, some of this probably not even making it to the ground, but regardless, radar indicating at least that there is a little bit of flurry activity yet to come. So as we head into Thursday, another day where I like to call rinse and repeat, where we're looking at similar conditions, a mix of sun and clouds, although as we get later in the day, we'll start to see some cloud building in. And into the evening hours, a slight chance we see a couple of flurries through southern sections into Swift Current, Moose Jaw, Regina. Maybe you pick up a dusting through the evening hours. I think it's a fairly slight chance, if that. But you'll notice as we get into Friday, you see this ridge in the jet stream, or this ridge of high pressure starting to form. What this is going to do is clear our skies out as we get Friday into Saturday, but also cool our temperatures down and send us into more winter-like weather for Friday and into the weekend. So we're not quite done with the colder weather just yet. Not a lot in terms of precipitation coming in behind that. So you can see with our upper atmosphere here, you can see that cold pocket of air over northern Manitoba. That is going to spread some of that cold air into north and central parts of Saskatchewan. Although I do think that the southwest corner as we get into the weekend spared and actually above seasonal for this time of the year. But by and large, we're looking at most of us staying below seasonal as we get Friday into the day on Saturday. Waking up -7 in Regina first thing in the morning for your Thursday, -7s, -8s through central parts of the province. And again, another day where we're starting close to -30 for northern sections. So we're up to +2, mostly cloudy sky tomorrow, maybe peekaboo sunshine through the day. -4 for Saturday, for Friday, for Saturday, chance of some flurries, -1. And then we're back into seasonal territory into next week. For Saskatoon, +1, mostly cloudy skies for the afternoon for Thursday. Then there's that cool down, Ethan, as we get through the weekend before we pop back up into spring for next week.
Thanks, Riley. Well, for all the highlights, analysis, and breakdown of the provincial budget, you can visit our website, cbc.ca/sask. You can always see the latest budget video content on our YouTube channel, including the live stream of our budget special from Wednesday afternoon, featuring interviews and analysis. Stay with us. We'll have more on the budget after the break. 500 more police officers. That's what the Premier is promising, and Wednesday's budget offers some of that money to reach that goal. The province says it will fund 100 new municipal police officers, as well as 14 officers dedicated to nuisance properties. That's on top of $260 million for the RCMP. Plus, the province says it's launching its Marshals service in the coming months, a full year ahead of schedule, and $3.6 million to hire 50 officers for it. We caught up with the Saskatchewan RCMP commanding officer at the legislature.
The Marshals are hiring experienced police officers, so they're coming from a police force. That's what an experienced police officer is. So we're making sure that we're monitoring it to see if there is an impact. At this point, there really hasn't been on the Saskatchewan RCMP, but there's been a good consultation as of late from the government as to how can they best assist policing. What does that look like?
Blackmore says any support is appreciated to tackle the rise in violent crime. The Marshals Service will focus on gangs, guns, and drugs. Wednesday's provincial budget comes with a small surplus of just over $12 million, and the provincial government projects more of that in the future. A nearly $75 million surplus is expected in the 2026-27 budget, and well over $100 million is projected in 2027-28. It comes as the province says the last fiscal year will end with a deficit of around $660 million. But those will come as the debt continues to rise. This budget year is expected to add billions of dollars of debt, ending at nearly $35 billion, and that's projected to rise to over $38 billion in 2026. The Canadian Taxpayers Association says the government should be working to pay down the debt.
It's irresponsible borrowing, right? We're going to a time of really hard economic uncertainty and headwinds. A lot of things could happen in the next year, and the government decided, instead of saving some money to prepare for that problem, they decided to borrow irresponsibly billions more dollars and put that onto the backs of taxpayers, right? And we're looking at almost $1 billion in interest payments on that debt this year, $705 per Saskatchewanian. Saskatchewanians are cutting back, saving things for things that could be in the future. The government is continuing just to spend and put that onto the backs of taxpayers.
Halbrook says the government also should have cut spending, as this budget's surplus will do little to pay down the debt. And that is it for us. For the latest on the budget and other news, you can always head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. You can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.